interrupting you, but we have to now shift our focus to some very crucial news which is coming from the LAC. Let's go to that breaking news. All right, this is the statement of the Indian Army on the Indo-China commander level talks which were happening. The fourth round of talks is consistent. That is the statement coming in, and I'm putting that out for you. It's consistent with the consensus reached between the special representatives of India and China earlier on the 5th of July to discuss complete disengagement. The senior commanders reviewed the progress on the implementation of the first phase of disengagement. They also discussed the further steps to ensure a process of complete disengagement. The two sides remain committed to the objective of complete disengagement. This process is intricate, requires constant verification. They are taking it forward through regular meetings at the diplomatic and military levels. Those are the details coming in. Remember, there have been a round of talk at the commander level, multiple round of talks which has happened, especially at the friction points at the LAC. Disengagement at two crucial points, three crucial points had already happened. There were other areas, especially the plains and the Pekangso, where the disengagement still had to happen. Shreya was earlier pointing out, who covers the Defence Ministry for us, that the process of disengagement is going to be a long one. Let's cut across to Shreya, who gets us all these details. Shreya, put this into perspective, and we'll try and understand this from Shreya as to what these details mean. The fourth round of talks, they are consistent. We remember the Doklam crisis, how it panned out, the process of disengagement through talks, through diplomatic level channels, military channels. All that is an intricate process and it takes time. So yes, we have to make sure that the trust builds on both the sides across the LAC between India and China. The tense situation is controlled. The disengagement talks, the process of disengagement one is going to be long one, especially at the multiple friction points that we have seen along the LAC. You remember, it's been 1 month that around 20 Indian soldiers lost their lives at the Galwan Valley ever since that violent exchange had happened between the Indian and the Chinese side. A process of disengagement is underway as there are multiple friction areas which have been identified between the Indian and the Chinese side. The process of disengagement at the diplomatic level, there is already a process which has been established where the representatives of equal political and legal stature engage with each other, try to sort out the differences, talk at the crucial areas. A lot of trust building also has to be done. Most experts point out that especially as far as China is concerned, one has to make sure that what they assure is followed in letter and spirit on the ground as well. So if they say that they are disengaging from a certain friction point, that is also done on the ground. So yes, there is also verification that needs to be done, and that is what this formal statement from the army is saying. Shreya is with us on the broadcast. Shreya, fourth round of talks, it's consistent with the consensus reached between the special representatives. Help us understand this long, intricate process of disengagement. At what stage is it right now? Which direction is it going?
Anusha, the note that has been put out by the Indian Army doesn't really say much. First things first. It is very low on details, as it were. But this is what we are picking up by way of our sources. We can tell you that as of now, the process of disengagement is over in the Galwan Valley. It is also more or less over in the Hot Springs area. There are some troops, some 30 PLA troops who continue to be, we are being told, at Gogra. And, of course, the problem remains intricate at Pekangso. It remains complex at Depsang Plains as well. At Pekangso, we are being told that the Chinese, at least on the northern banks of Finger 4, have vacated the area. So the buffer zone that was being talked about has been created. There was some presence on the ridge line. It continues to be there, but it is minor, is what we are being told. They have gone back to Finger 5. They have pushed back to Finger 5. But it's not like they have vacated Finger 5. They continue to be there. The presence is not very high. I do believe by way of my sources that there is a timeline that has now been fixed for the process of disengagement to be over. For example, in Gogra, we are being told that whatever disengagement remains, which is some 30 PLA troops, they should be moving back by this weekend. Pekangso, no one really knows. Those are details that have not come out from the Corps Commander meeting. But apparently, timeline has been set for disengagement even at Pekangso. Depsang Plains, right now, there are no details coming forward. Again, that's an area that is going to be complex because this is where the Chinese have come up to a place called Y Junction, Anusha. This is some 15 kilometers inside Indian territory. Very importantly, yesterday, the Corps Commander meeting, of course, got over. After that, the Army Chief met with the Raksha Mantri, with top generals here in Delhi, discussed the outcome of the Corps Commander meeting. After that, the government of India was briefed yesterday again for 2 hours. I believe that the very powerful China study group met. Its members, of course, the External Affairs Minister, NSA Ajit Doval, someone who is leading India's talks with China. All of them have met as well to discuss what has happened at the Corps Commander meeting. A timeline has been fixed. Once the process of disengagement gets over, it's only then will the process of de-escalation be discussed.
All right, it's interesting, Shreya, that you mentioned the distinction between disengagement and de-escalation, and that's a very important one. The Y junction, 15 kilometer inside Indian territory, is strategically a very important point, and also something that India and China both will make sure that they stand to their position. China, of course, making a very stubborn stance as far as the Y junction is concerned. Shreya, if you can hear me? We'll try and connect to Shreya in just a bit, but as Shreya was pointing out, I'll just put out the details yet again for you. The disengagement is over at the hot spring and also at Galwan. There are some about 30 PLA troops which are still at Gogra, and that still has to happen. So Shant Sareen is an expert. He's with us on the broadcast. Let me quickly get in a word from him. There is a statement coming in from the army, sir, and it lays out some very thin details as to what is happening. It says that the fourth round of talks is consistent, talking about the Pagangso, Dipsang Plains, the Y junction, those critical strategically important points. What is your understanding of the disengagement process which has been going on? According to you, how encouraging are the developments?
Look, I think the Army's statement, I think it reflects a lot of caution with which the Army is looking at this entire process. Quite clearly, the fact that both sides, the tensions are not increasing, rather it seems that the tensions are dissipating on the borders. I think that's a good sign, one. Number two, yes, it is going to be a long, drawn-out and intricate process, which the Army statement also lays out. And frankly, even before these talks had started, this is what was the analysis of most people in the policy-making circles, that this is going to take time. Right. Number three, and which is also an encouraging sign, that at the military, at the diplomatic, and at the political level, both the countries remain engaged to start the process of disengagement and to reduce tension. But again, at the in the ultimate analysis, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating of it. Right. How, whether the Chinese actually move back, how quickly they move back, or how much time they take to move back, what is the kind of posturing they do even after status quo ante is restored. Does this mean that in the depth areas the Chinese continue to amass their troops, because then that would be seen as an impending threat. So India will continue to maintain its force levels. And then, of course, there are going to be the larger questions that even if status quo ante is restored, what happens when India continues with its infrastructure development? How does that play out in the larger India-China context? And then, of course, extrapolating from that, the larger India-China dynamics, which seems to have changed completely after the events in eastern Ladakh. So clearly, I think the Army is just talking about a very specific kind of a thing which is happening right now. They're being cautious. They're not raising unnecessary hopes, but they're also not, showing that there is no reason for any kind of optimism.
And I think one of the crucial points that is coming out in this statement, and I'm quoting, that the two sides remain committed to the objective of complete disengagement. And I think that's an important one, because we are looking at disengagement at all the crucial points of friction, including the Depsang Plains, including the Y junction, and clearly that's the objective that the Indian side is committed to.
Yes, you're right. But, look, some of the verbiage in these kind of statements is basically to, not ruffle the feathers too much. But at the end of the day, everybody says that they're committed, and everybody, subscribes to this highfalutin kind of verbiage. But like I said, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Until and unless status quo ante is restored, things will continue to remain, somewhat on the tenterhooks. Number one. Number two, I think it is also important to realize that in the past as well, some very nice statements have come out, assurances have been made, and then these have been violated on the ground. So when the army talks about a constant verification and monitoring process to see what is happening on the ground, I think that is in the fitness of things. That is the way to move forward. Trust simply does not exist between India and China right now. So everything will have to be verified. And, every step will then be followed by the next step. And it can't be a kind of a big bang kind of a solution just yet.
Those are the details which are coming in. That's the statement from the army that two sides remain committed to the objective of complete disengagement. A process is intricate, requires constant verification. Of course, disengagement is almost being completed at 3 friction points. There are 2 others which are left, but that's the statement coming in from the Indian Army. All right, we're now moving on, and after being